And we're live. Awesome. So I am getting the chance today to speak with Rian Overcash. She is an independent wellness consultant who specializes in nutrigenomics and functional medicine coaching. She has her own business, The Habit Method, and her goal is to help introduce clients to testing options, practitioners, and quality nutritional support and bio devices to aid them in their journey of wellness. So welcome, Rian.
Thanks so much for having me, Troy. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you taking the time. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your kind of background? I know one of the things in chatting with you briefly beforehand that I got to learn about you was that you're a 7th generation Texan, which is amazing because as a real estate agent, so often I'm dealing with people who are, first year Texans from that standpoint. So just kind of give us a little bit of your overall backstory.
I am a 7th generation Texan, and in a weird way, it's kind of what got me into genetics and using genetics for health. I was doing some family research years ago and did a DNA test to see if I could expand that search, and somehow ended up using it years later, for my wellness. And so it was a very full circle moment, but I started off in fitness. I was a certified personal trainer for many years. And one thing I realized spending a lot of time one-on-one with somebody is it was never just one issue. People would come to me with diet and exercise kind of being on the forefront of our goals. And very quickly, it became clear that was not the end of the support they needed. There was always some kind of underlying issue, whether it was poor sleep habits or hormonal imbalances or maybe lack of education around what foods they should and shouldn't be eating. And so my fitness company grew very quickly into wellness. And at the same time, I was having kind of a really interesting parallel in my personal life. In my early 20s, I got very sick. I had a rare autoimmune condition that was kind of spinning out of control and essentially running my life. I was often in and out of the hospital. No doctor seemed to be able to help me. I went years without a diagnosis. And I will say, while it is helpful and having a diagnosis definitely leads us in the right direction, it didn't necessarily help me or impact my health. I was diagnosed with something called dysautonomia, which basically means my autonomic nervous system was just going haywire. And I was passed from specialist to specialist. Nobody really was able to give me an idea of a protocol that was correct for this diagnosis. And it was exhausting. It was frustrating, and at times felt very hopeless. So I was really trying to do everything I could to self-educate and learn and understand what was going on with my body so that I could do my part in participating in my health. And so essentially when I made it to 90% remission, people were starting to come to me and ask, what did you do? And how did you get here? And who did you talk to? And what doctors were really making a difference for you? And that was the beginning of my consulting practice. I love to use nutrigenomics, which is essentially a genetic test that kind of helps us get a look into where your body might experience areas of weakness under stress. And so for me, a lot of people that come to me are really struggling to understand not just what's going on with their body, but why. And so nutrigenomics offers a little more insight than some of the real-time testing that they've done over and over.
That's awesome. So again, for anyone who's just jumped on late, my name is Troy Schlicker. You may know me from the Austin Spotlight podcast. I'm getting the chance to interview Rian Overcash, throwing up some of her contact information. But I bet you the health and wellness side, the fitness training side, especially with COVID, has been a nice thing for you personally, as well as for your clients, as we've all been kind of in a bit of a whirlwind as far as how to stay healthy and how to stay fit when we're spending so much time at home and
Right.
not able to work out, junk food at the disposal all the time, and those kind of things. So aside from the disease side of it and the genetic side of it, like just how much our lifestyles have changed in the last 4 or 5 months and how impactful that is, because so someone that's been fortunate enough to be relatively healthy most of my life but fairly active, as you get older you start to realize how connected, like you talked about, sleep is to your health, how connected eating and all those different things are, and how much of an impact it has in trying to keep you healthy and keeping you healthy for a long period of time as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I really try to emphasize with my clients, is that it really is all connected. And I feel like sometimes Western medicine gets sort of stuck on the symptoms, and people end up in this vicious cycle of treating symptoms. And we never really get to the root cause. And so part of my job is to sort of help guide them and avoid the pitfalls that I went through, the decades of struggle, and get them there quickly, efficiently, and match them with a practitioner that I think is going to be really impactful in changing their life. You mentioned the transition everybody's in with the quarantine setup, and one of the really beautiful things that I've seen are some people who maybe didn't have the time, were working the 9 to 5 at a desk job, and now are suddenly able to sort of integrate some wellness into their lifestyle and their daily schedule. And so I think there's really two sides to this. Some
Sure.
of us definitely got busier, and then other people are sort of figuring out and really taking their health seriously. And I think that's really exciting too. There's a lot of discussions right now about how to optimize your health.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure a lot more. Some people that were, if you were eating out, or, hey, you'd swing by
Right.
McDonald's for lunch, and it's not like, well, I'm at home on calls all day, I can go to my kitchen and eat healthier and stuff too. So it's
Right.
definitely a lot of how you handle the situations that are thrown in front of you, which is also obviously very true on the medical side of it. Like you mentioned with healthcare in our country, it's definitely a two-sided prong. There's unfortunately people like me who, while we're healthy, I probably don't go to a doctor as often as I should, which would help in a primary care physician knowing more about you and
Right.
really treating the whole person from that standpoint, versus only going in when you feel bad. And so then it does, I feel like, get that cycle of people just want to be treated for the immediate thing that's happening to them right now, whether that be, in my case, usually if it's something that's allergies when cedar season hits or something like that.
Right.
And so then it's like, just give me my medicine. I don't want to go down the whole rabbit hole of what else is important. But in reality, that's really how you're going to have that overall health and wellness aspect of your life long term.
Yeah. And what's really interesting about that is oftentimes I will get people that are like, I don't care about the whole deep dive. I really just want to know why I sneeze every September. And what's really neat when we get nutrigenomics back is not only we can see how your immune system's functioning, or how you were genetically predisposed to function, and which, allergies are definitely related to our immune system, and then how our body reacts to certain things like histamines, and basically target the approach to tackle these things. So even when it is a simple symptom, and not this deep unraveling of our
Sure.
whole health, there's some really interesting offerings in nutrigenomics, and I think it's getting to be a little bit more mainstream. People, I know it's a mouthful, and people are definitely people are really familiar with the term epigenetics, and it's very similar. So epigenetics is kind of how our lifestyle impacts our genetics, and nutrigenomics is more in the realm of how food and nutrients are working with our genes, or how to make nutrients work with our genes. So it's pretty amazing. I really think it's the future of medicine, and it's certainly a fantastic diagnostic tool for longevity. I've had a handful of people come to me and say, I think I'm doing everything right, but let's run some genetics and see if I'm supplementing correctly. And if I'm not, can you help guide me to some of the best supplements that are probably the most beneficial for me? And that's always really fun too. I think when people get excited about this, I get really excited, and they start taking their health even more seriously, because there's a lot of information out there right now, and it's tough to kind of vet what is accurate and what's worth doing and what just is not sustainable for your lifestyle. So my company's called The Habit Method because I really feel like people's wellness needs to be as easy as a habit. If I send somebody home with a list of supplements that's a mile long and certainly doesn't fit into their lifestyle, the odds are they're not going to do it. So I really like to make it work with their life. And the more time we spend together, the more I feel like I can get a feel for what they like and they need. And of course, the things they don't.
Yeah. Well, and it's also tricky because, or not tricky, but another thing that realization that I have is how long people really are supposed to live. Like if you look at things like, I mean, just something as simple as like a life insurance chart of stuff, like kids that are born today are projected to live to be like 120. Now obviously not everyone's going to be
Yeah.
that old, but
Yeah.
like the life expectancy is really crazy. And so you think, I at least have one more full life, potentially two more full lives from where I'm currently at right now.
Right.
That if I want those to be enjoyable, I would behoove me to be as healthy as I can be through that whole process versus wearing my body down now and not
Right.
understanding those things and then having to deal with the consequences down the road. So unfortunately, a lot of people, myself included, you get very short-sighted as far as what's happening today, what's happening tomorrow, and sometimes it can be difficult to look that far in the future.
Oh, yeah.
But it's an important thing, I think, for all of us.
And I think that's what's really been interesting about using genetics and I certainly don't have to use genetics when I consult with somebody, but most of the time that's what people are coming to me really interested in. But the crazy thing is I walked around with this report in my giant 4-inch notebook to all these doctors, and usually people would just flip right by it. Most practitioners didn't know what to do with it or really how to utilize it. And so I think that when I got to somebody who really knew what they were doing, it was a total game changer, because now I was able to sort of spend the time doing the things that were really game changers and not all of the other supplements that I would kind of like try and they wouldn't work, or a diet or lifestyle change that I would try and it wouldn't work. And, people ask me this all the time, and I feel like it's such a simple testimonial, but I'm in my 30s and people ask me, do you feel better now? I know you're in remission. Do you feel better now? And honestly, I can tell you, I feel better than I did at 22. Granted, I was pretty sick in my early 20s, but just figuring out how to harness your wellness and kind of optimize. When we create this bio individual plan for somebody, it really is optimizing their unique health. So all of their nutritional needs, lifestyle needs, we're able to support the areas that they might naturally have a weakness in. And so I think it's so much easier than the alternative. But I think that for some people it's still a little confusing. They're not exactly sure what they're getting.
Oh, sure. No, again, it's like most things in life, like I do believe, like you were saying, I think a lot of this is becoming more and more mainstream. Like you're seeing athletes like Tom Brady, with his TB12 method, trying to play into his mid 40s as a football player, which is unheard of. And you have places like Whole Foods and stores like that are super mainstream popular because of how much people want to be healthy. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if you're not doing it as a full-time job and really researching it, you may not have the same type of knowledge that someone like you has, because not only did you have to live it while you were sick and trying to figure it out there, but now you've made it a career from that standpoint.
Yeah,
and so
I do
so much. Go ahead.
It's
So
so much
knowledge.
information.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning, and I learn something from every client that I work with, which is kind of the beautiful thing about this. And one of the really fun things that I've started doing on my Instagram stories is doing a grocery store tour for people. I will get probably 50 to 100 DMs a day asking, is this healthy? Should I eat this? Is this a better alternative than A, B, or C? And it's been really fun to kind of help them navigate through this overwhelming world of products, supplements, things that look healthy but really aren't. I think that can be really confusing. So, and then when people ask me, what's the best diet? What's the number one diet? There's really not one. It's really what's best for you. And so, kind of explaining to people that there's not a blanket term or a catch-all or a one-size-fits-all approach. I think it can make life a little bit more doable, or at least that's the goal. Um, and getting, the more time I get to spend with somebody, the more I'm able to sort of hone in on how to make small tweaks and just make it easy.
Yeah, no, I mean that's again, I know for me is a huge thing from just a diet perspective and trying to be healthy, right? Like what are some simple things you can do, because it's hard to go with make full on meals 3 times a day, 7 days a week kind of situation if
Sure.
it's a food thing or if it's a supplement thing, and the amount of misinformation, like you say, is out there. Things where they'll talk about chicken without hormones, whatever, when that's like the FDA doesn't allow you to do that, but
Right.
people say, "Oh, great, but it doesn't. This one doesn't have hormones." Well, none of them do.
None
Or
of them have
you know,
hormones. Yeah.
yeah, or this, ooh, this is now fat free. Well, that's great, but we put in all these other chemicals so that way it still
Exactly.
tastes good, and it's
Exactly.
not it's maybe healthier from a fat perspective, but not from another perspective and stuff. And so
Right.
all those things are easier. Wanted to point out, I just threw down Ryan's Instagram handle. That is probably the preferred place to check her out, just because she's more active there than she is on Facebook, even though we're doing the live here on Facebook. So definitely should check out her information there, because she's always dropping knowledge from that standpoint. But what are some of your thoughts just on the food industry in general from that standpoint? Because again, I do think it's getting better as far as more healthy options and those kind of things. But at the same point in time, there's also kind of that niche part of the health industry that isn't probably really all that much healthier than the regular industry. I actually saw in your stories you had thrown down the what's healthier, the Krispy Kreme donut or the
Oh my
protein
gosh.
cookie, and I'm
Yeah.
kind of like, neither of them sound that healthy, quite frankly. But
Yeah, I know. I got a lot of DMs saying, "Is this a trick question?" So I will post the answer to that tonight. But yeah, I actually got this question from someone that I used to work with, and she said, "I really want a treat at the end of the night, and I'm really struggling to find something that I don't feel so guilty about, but is still kind of satisfying, and feels maybe like a dessert." And so she sent me a picture of this cookie, and stay tuned, because I'll tell you all about it. But yeah, it's really shocking. And a couple of the other things that I think are really misleading. So I often see people telling me that they'll send me pictures and say, "I'm using this fat-free half and half." And I kind of, it leaves me a little bit speechless, because if you take half and half in the real world, right, we're dealing with fat. That is what it is. It's kind of like fat-free olive oil. Well, gosh, what in the heck is it then? And so 3 things that I really try to stay away from. I try to limit sugar, especially refined sugar combined with fat, because those 2 things are not found in nature. And I really like to limit my dairy intake. That's just a personal preference. I'm not lactose intolerant. There's just, especially things like yogurt, they can be really misleading. So if something does not look the way that your grandmother would recognize it, if you are eating blue yogurt out of a tube, that, I don't care if it's fat free or sugar free or what, we could probably do better. I feel like that's an easy one. And then anything that is extremely shelf stable, that always makes me nervous. I really try to eat as close to nature as possible. And this might be a good time just to remind anyone who just jumped in, I am not a doctor. I do not offer medical advice. I'm here to just kind of help guide and provide education through lots of areas of wellness. I love to share some of my favorite books, and people will often send me their favorite health books. And I think that's been a really fun way to connect with people that I probably will never meet. But I think there's some really amazing offerings. And so I'll try to keep posting all of that on my Instagram if somebody's hungry for info.
Nice. I will put the disclosure out there. I'm not a doctor either, although I play one on Facebook. But one of the other things too, with the quote unquote healthy foods, is then it will trick you into eating more of that than you would have if you just had the regular non-healthy quote unquote item from that standpoint. And so again, if you're eating more, that's not necessarily always better. One of the tricks that I try to use as well too, is the fewer number of ingredients I can find in an item or in a product usually probably means, again, that it's a little bit healthier because like you say there's not as many surprise, unnameable ingredients and stuff from that standpoint. So that's always
and honestly, the world of supplements is getting to be just as bad. I'll meet with somebody and they'll bring out this bucket of supplements and we'll start going through the labels and they'll realize really quickly that these are not quality. And it's frustrating because I think like I felt the same way, but I felt really duped when I would buy something thinking it was one thing and I would find out from my doctor or my nutritionist that they really were a crummy choice. And it can be kind of overwhelming. And so I spend a lot of time reading and researching and trying and contacting companies. And some of my clients joke that I'm a professional harasser because I'm really not afraid to kind of get on the phone and just bother someone until they give me the information that will help us. So I'm happy to do that and go to bat for somebody. And I think right now there's a lot of questions, not only around supplements, but around some of the things that we used to think were healthy and maybe like more in the fitness space, like the pre-workouts and the creatine and the protein powder. And I think there's a large group of people kind of coming back around that eating whole food might be better. So, you know, and that just goes back to the same idea of really making this work for you and your life.
Yeah, no, I mean, I came across someone that was promoting a fat burner, and I was like, so you can just drink this fat burner and sit on your couch, and then that'll incinerate your fat. Like that's not how that works at all. But it's interesting the amount of stuff that's out there. So if someone like me were looking to get improve their health, was coming to you, kind of what would be the process as far as obviously you kind of get to know me and my situation and stuff, but like what would someone expect who gets in contact with you to try to improve their health?
Sure. So I essentially have two offerings. I offer nutrigenomic testing with a review. So I use a provider-only test. It's not like a 23andMe. We certainly could review that, but I use this lab because there's a lot of patient privacy, and they provide a very comprehensive nutrigenomic report for us to review. So people can certainly come to me just for testing and review. And if they have a practitioner they like and they've worked with, then we've just armed them with a little bit more information moving forward and they can continue on their way. And then the other option is to take that information and work with me. And so I sell a few consulting packages. People can sign up for as few or as many hours as they would like. And we work one-on-one. I really like to leave that up to my client because sometimes I'm on a case and somebody needs a deep dive into their medical history. They need a lot of help getting organized and doing some practitioner outreach. And other times, like for you, probably not so much. So we could spend that time really looking at how to integrate some basic wellness tips into your daily life and just kind of making like your home to work to home transition a little more optimized. And I think once you have that nutrigenomic report in combo with real-time testing like your traditional blood work, you really are armed with a lot of great information. You can make some good choices around that.
Very nice. And you can kind of help people. I know you're located here in Central Texas as well, but you do most of your stuff virtually, so you can kind of help people all over the place from that standpoint.
Yes, all of the kits can be drop shipped. The beautiful thing about these test kits is they're a really simple cheek swab. I wish I had brought one with me to show you how easy they get mailed to your house. You can just swab the inside of your cheek right at home, and then you pop it in a mailer bag and send it back. So I know people are really concerned right now with COVID about going to a hospital or a lab or another office. And so you certainly don't have to go anywhere or do any of that. And we can easily review via FaceTime or telephone call. And same thing with a lot of the consulting work. I tend to work very flexible hours because I'm often working with people around their schedule. And so I'm happy to accommodate people in that realm. And the other thing that I really enjoy doing and that I've learned so much from doing is some practitioner outreach. it's great if someone comes to me and says, my doctor and I just are kind of stumped, but this is my guy and I want to stick with him. And I think we're going to try to make his job easier or her job easier. And if people don't, and they're really frustrated, one of my strengths is matchmaking. And so I'm happy to do some outreach and find the specialist that I think will really be impactful, and kind of connect patient and practitioner, and then provide some information. So we spend a lot of time organizing past history, medical history, things that we'd like answers to, symptom lists, and then the nutrigenomic testing as well, and kind of give that doctor a lot of runway.
Nice. I mean, it's one of the unfortunate benefits of you having gone through your own issues is you learned how to navigate and sometimes circumvent the traditional healthcare system, and know kind of where to send people and how to help them hopefully get direct contact with the people they need to get contact with, because that's obviously a big issue overall within the healthcare system, is actually seeing the person that is going to be able to provide the help and support sometimes.
Yeah, I think by the time it was said and done for me, I saw 37 specialists. Those are the ones I kept track of. There might have been more here and there in a hospital or something, but yeah, I really want to keep people from going through that. I think there are a lot of pitfalls, and I think no one's to blame, and I certainly don't want to sound like I am, anti-Western medicine or anti allopathic practice, but I think what we're really learning about health and wellness is everything's connected, and taking a big overall look is really going to make your doctor's life easier. So certainly here to work with the practitioner and not against them.
Yeah, and like I say, I think most practitioners want to know more about their clients and provide longer range stuff as well too. They're unfortunately sometimes handcuffed by, again, patients like me who don't come in near often as we should, and also by the system itself, right? That pays them based off of the drugs that they prescribe or different things from that standpoint. And so we're obviously seeing changes. I'm fortunate enough as well to know some physicians that kind of work outside of the traditional system, so that way they can provide that kind of assistance. And I'm sure a lot more from that standpoint too.
Oh, sure. And yeah, I think they're as frustrated as we are. I mean, they're always crunched for time, and they're working with really limited information. And so for me, I think the biggest game changer in getting out of the vicious cycle of the autoimmune nonsense diagnosis was really getting organized, getting my information organized, and making sure that everything was really easy to hand off, and communicating efficiently. And so that's something that I work one-on-one with a client. So if we know we're meeting with a specialist, we will organize a list of questions beforehand, so everybody's on the same page. And this practitioner knows what we're going to ask. We're not putting them on the spot. We give them some time to kind of marinate on these ideas. And I think it works really well. I think most practitioners are really grateful for the understanding, and I think it makes the relationship just that much stronger and more memorable, because doctors are busy.
Yep, for sure. Awesome. Well, is there anything that I forgot to cover today from that standpoint that you wanted to hit on at all, or?
No, I think that covers it all. I just I really appreciate you having me on to kind of share what I do. It's kind of strange and different, interesting territory. So thank you for letting me share.
No, I'm glad we were able to connect, because I think it's an important niche within the larger healthcare universe, which again can be a little daunting for a lot of people at some point in time too. So like I say, still have Ryan's Instagram handle up, which is Habit Method Health. She is going to have a website, I think she mentioned, down the road here, hopefully not too far down the road. But if you go follow her on Instagram, when all that launches, I'm sure there'll be a lot of parties and posts and stories and stuff like that, so you can find out from that standpoint. And then you can also, if you need to, potentially contact her at thehabitmethod@gmail.com.
Thanks so much, Troy.
Awesome. I appreciate you jumping on, and hope you have a good rest of the day. Everyone out there, have a good day.
Bye-bye.